Hello everyone, we are going to tie our caddis today. What we're going to need for this particular pattern is some deer or elk hair. I just happen to have gray here. We'll need a grizzly hackle that matches roughly the size of our hook. This happens to be a 16. We will need some wire. This happens to just be copper in brassy size, and some dubbing, and we're going to be using gray dubbing for this. So we're going to go ahead and start with our thread, and it doesn't really matter where we start it on the shank of the hook. We're just going to simply get it tied in, and we're going to work our way to the back. And once we get to the back, we're going to take and trim off our excess here, and we're going to tie in our piece of wire. And we're going to leave it hang straight out the back. Wrap it down good, and then we're going to tie in our hackle. What you can do before you tie your hackle in, it's not a bad idea to palmer the feather a little bit, get it all standing up, so that when you wrap it, not as much of the material gets trapped down underneath itself as you wrap. I've already cleaned off just this little piece of vein right here, and what we'll do is we're going to tie that in right here in this location, right at the back. Now, I'm going to build just a little bit of a thread body and go right to the back. And we're going to put in our dubbing at this point. So by taking just a small amount, you can wet your fingers, and you just want a little bit. Take and roll it to your thread just like that. We don't want to get too much because that'll bulk it up and it won't end up making the size of body that we're really looking to make. And it becomes kind of a troublesome piece when you're wrapping. It gets kind of fluffy and out of the shape. So dubbing rope can be about that big. Slide it together, and we're just going to go ahead and wrap as even as we can. We don't want a tapered body on this. We just want a relatively even body. You're going to go about 2/3 of the way forward, stopping here. Our next step is to wrap our hackle. And what we're going to do, we're going to use a forward or overhand wrap on our hackle. We're going to space it to where we end up with about 4 to 5 wraps of hackle. And then we're going to tie the hackle off. Once you have it secured, trim out your excess, save it. We have plenty to do, another fly or two here. We're going to take and give this hackle a little bit of a haircut to make room for the elk hair or deer hair wing that we're going to put on this fly. We're going to go ahead and trim kind of at an angle, just like so. Give it a little bit of a haircut. We're then going to bring our wire forward, and we're going to do a reverse wrap on this. And we do that to kind of help trap the vein of the feather in place so that if it were to break while you're fishing, it doesn't all completely unravel. And yes, it will trap some of your fibers down. You could choose to get them out with a little pick or just leave them. It's not too critical that they're all standing up. Once you have it forward, tie it down in location and trim. From here, we're going to select our deer hair in this case for this fly. And what I like to do is select a grouping of hair that's about twice the amount that I actually want for a wing. And the reason for that is I don't typically use a hair stacker. What I'll do is I'll just take and select the grouping of hair that I want that's about double the amount of the wing that I'm looking for, cut it out, and then I'll just take and hold the end here, and I'll take out anything that's really long and sticking out. From there, I'm going to take my fingers way to the end here, and I'm going to take and just pick out all the shorter stuff just like this, so you end up with about half of what you grabbed. And if you look, it makes a pretty even little wing. If you really want to use a hair stacker, you certainly can. You would still want to remove any of the extra short stuff or extra long stuff and get rid of any undercoat that's in it. But I don't ever necessarily worry too much about absolutely perfectly stacked hair. We'll set it to where it's roughly about 1/8 of an inch past the bend of the hook. Once we have it where we want it, we're just going to take and pinch it down with our finger. And I like to go 2 loose wraps over the hair and then snug it up a little. And then I'll go ahead and give it 5 or 6 good wraps. Then I'm going to grab this hair and I'm going to stand it up the best I can. And I'm going to take and wrap a bit of a thread head right up against that hair. And what that's going to do is going to cause this hair to want to stand up. So from here, we're going to go ahead and whip finish before we actually end up cutting the hair on our caddis here. So we're going to take and hook, pull this hair back with one hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Slip off. We're going to cut our thread very carefully. And then we want to give this caddis a little bit of a haircut. And we're just going to go right about there and cut it. So now we've got a nice little head and a wing, and that is our deer hair caddis. And if you want, you can clean up a couple little areas if you're not really happy with how it looks, but that will catch fish all day long here in Montana. Thanks, everyone.